My God, do we need this or what? Free our minds.
Corporations have taken over the world.
Freedom of information, personal empowerment, the Irish side of the moon.
Hello, you're very welcome to the Irish side of the moon. This is Michael Leddy at the microphone. It's another one of the Lunar modules, shorter shows, recorded and uploaded immediately. The guest this time is Bill Still. Bill Still is an American documentary film producer and author of several non-fiction books. He's the director, narrator, producer of the documentary films The Money Masters, Secret of Oz and the new Jekyll Island, documentaries which critique the United States monetary system. Mr. Still is in Ireland at the moment, and indeed he's speaking tonight at the Royal Hotel in Bray. He was in Derry earlier in the week. I got a chance to speak to him there, and I recorded a short interview with him today, Thursday, talking a little bit about Jekyll Island and a little bit about his plans for speaking tonight, Thursday, and also next Monday he is in Belfast. And I'm on the line right now with Bill Still. Bill, you're very welcome back to the Irish side of the moon.
Well, I'm certainly happy to be in Ireland for the first time in my life.
Yes, that's part of the reason we're chatting today. It's been about 4 years since you were last on the show. Gabriel spoke to you on that occasion, one of our very first guests, as it were. And of course you were working from your base, from the far side of the world, as it were. But this time, you're actually on my doorstep. And I had the pleasure of actually meeting with you face-to-face earlier this week. You were speaking in Derry. You're speaking tonight. You're off next week as well. We'll be talking about those dates in about 10 minutes or so and get some information on that. First and foremost, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Jekyll Island. Tell me about this documentary. Tell me about this message, and tell me about the work that went into this particular project.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to know what's happening in the sky here in Ireland. There's some substance being emitted from the clouds. I think it's called dihydrogen oxide. I noticed that the pigeons across on the way on the roof seem to be frozen, as though it causes all the muscles to seize up, so that human and animal life can no longer move when this is happening.
This sounds like a very accurate. You're definitely getting the Irish experience, but you have had some sunshine since you arrived. I know you've been here about a week. You have had glimpses of the sun. Is that correct?
Yes, but we haven't seen this thing. I believe you call it rain. We haven't seen that for about 4 months, so it's a very curious phenomenon to us.
It's coming down, yeah. I'm just in the door myself at my office here, and I have a dripping coat and a dripping umbrella not very far from me this morning. So yes, we're getting some rain at the moment in our part of the world. You were in Israel, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago? You definitely...
Yeah, we were in Israel for 2 weeks before we came here, helping a very newly formed up monetary reform group of people. And although they're just recently come together and started really getting active on the issue, the Israelis, I think, have I don't think their politicians are quite as corrupt as in some other nations. So
that's a lovely statement. I love it.
They actually let us into the Knesset. We spoke to 4 members of the parliament there. There are 120 MPs in the Israeli Knesset. And we got to speak to a significant number of them, and especially some of the more important ones having to do with the economy. And I think they're open to it. The one was a very famous professor of economics, and who was a World Bank official, and he said he always knew that there was something wrong with the system because it never seemed to react the way their theories were taught to them. And actually, he was a teacher of that theory as well, but he never really fully believed it because it just didn't fit the model. And so now I think he understands that the problem is that we've lost control of our governments in virtually every nation on this planet, And the reason we've lost control is we've allowed bankers to start lending to government. And so the entire right system of self-governance has been flipped on its head, to where bankers lend to the government, and then the government tries to disperse money as best it can. But that way, the nation is essentially renting all its money into existence. And what we need to do is turn that back on its head to the correct order, where the government creates the money, and then it can lend some of it to the banks, and then the banks would lend it to us, and that would keep banks in their proper place. But that's not what's going on today.
As you illustrated in Money Masters, Secret of Oz, and I presume in Jekyll Island, which I have not seen yet, there are historical precedents for other systems. There are other ways of doing things, and this is a core element of the message that you're bringing through your documentaries, and the message you were bringing Monday night to the group in Derry when I saw you. And it's a cornerstone of what you have to say to people, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what Jekyll Island is all about. It's what the film leads up to is the period between 1907 and 1913 in the United States, where the biggest bankers, J.P. Morgan and the Rockefellers, deliberately caused the Depression of 1907 just to run some of their competition out of business. They wanted the railroads and the banking interest of the Heinz Group, like the makers of Heinz ketchup, and the banking group was called the Knickerbocker Bank, and so they wanted to destroy that and buy up its assets, and they succeeded in doing that. But as these things do happen, the Depression, which was they hoped would be contained locally to New York, actually spread throughout the country. And unfortunately for them, the difference is back in those days, they had a very honest press. The guy's name was Joseph Pulitzer, who founded the Pulitzer Prize. And he knew who was behind it. He knew that Morgan and the Rockefellers and the other members of what they then called the Money Trust had done this deliberately. And he was determined to make a big stink about it. And so the public was very aware of what was going on, and they demanded that Congress do something about it. And so the Money Trust decided they had to get out in front of the situation and secretly write a bill which would appear to fix the problems, which would appear to regulate the banks, but in fact would do nothing but actually further consolidate their power, centralize their power. And that's what they did. They snuck off down to J.P. Morgan's private island, Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia. You couldn't, there wasn't even a train to it. You had to take the train to Brunswick, Georgia, and then take a boat out to Jekyll Island. So it was difficult to get to. And they got there around Thanksgiving time, when most of the people from New York who spent the the hardest part of the winter down there, they didn't arrive until the first of the year and stayed there through March. So there was nobody there, and they could be assured that no one would reveal that they were the ones writing the legislation. And that's essentially what became the Federal Reserve Bill, which appeared to split the money power up into 12 regional banks, et cetera, but when in fact it really just further consolidated all the banking powers in the United States in the hands of New York. And so that's what the problem is. Power has become too centralized, and at this point we have the specter of almost all national monies are created as an interest-bearing debt. Typically, it's over 90% of all money is created by banks, not by the government. And you hear this falsely reported all the time in the United States, where they say, oh, the government is just printing money wildly. It's printing way too much money. It's just not the case. We don't print any money at all. We borrow every penny into existence. And that basic fallacy is what throws people off the track. And that's what allows the bankers to continue to not only control the vast quantity of every nation's money supply through debt, instead of just having the government issuing it. And the way they control this is by lending the government money, not just the government in general, but we found out in Israel that all the major political parties were deeply in debt to the banks, and it was a specific kind of debt They're called short-term call notes, 30 and 60-day call notes, which can be called in at any time. And the problem is that all of these parties have between 3 and 5 times as many of these call notes being owed to banks than they have net assets in the entire party. So it's a very serious threat. The bank can and has in the past called in these notes and completely destroyed the borrower. And that's how they do it in Israel. They probably do some form of that here in Ireland and virtually every nation. And I've been following the newspapers, and you see how the big banks were just playing on the government's ignorance. And we just can't have that. This whole thing is not complicated at all. And if the people, I really like, I think it's Ben Gilroy's democracy movement. There's no sense, there's no reason why we can't vote on all the major issues ourselves through the internet. And if there's an issue that seems too complicated for us to figure out, well, then we should automatically reject it. Because this whole banking mess is, 95% of all the social problems in the world. And it's not that difficult to understand, despite the fact that the bankers claim that it's, way too complex and you have to leave it to us experts. It's just not that complicated. The 12-year-old Victoria Grant from Canada made that famous video at the last public banking conference in Philadelphia, or the one a year ago. And she could explain it perfectly well off the top of her head without notes. So it's not that complicated. And whenever you hear something that is too complicated, you should automatically reject it and look for a simpler answer.
You have been investigating this. You've been investigating this message, carrying this message for decades now. Have you seen a change in terms of the fact that when you started off, you were very much maybe the only one that was aware of these things and was bringing the message out? Now you're traveling the world. You come to Ireland, you go to Israel. You have a major online presence. You have your reports, etc. Do you find that things have changed over the last couple of decades in terms of the fact that more people and more groups? You mentioned Bill and Gilroy. There's also positive money. There's sensible money. More people, more groups are waking up and realizing that it is very simple, this message, and that what you're pointing to doesn't make sense. And yes, there is another way of doing it.
Well, yeah, I've seen, when I first started out at conferences in the United States, I was the only one out there preaching this message, and, I'd just be besieged by gold bugs as a heretic and all this sort of thing. But I started out as a gold bug. I didn't know any better, and it was only because of my love of history that I started reading back on this stuff and tracing back to the root of the problem. And you see that gold is the problem. It's not the solution. I mean, here in the United States, we're on a gold-only money system from the time of the Civil War, with a few exceptions when they had some silver dollars, all the way up through the Great Depression. And gold did not help the bankers from inflating the money supply during during the Roaring '20s, and then deflating the money supply deliberately, which caused the Great Depression. And of course, this was studied by Milton Friedman 30, 40 years ago, and he declared that the deliberate downturn in the money supply, the withdrawal of the money supply in the United States, was deliberately the work of the Federal Reserve System, and the Fed has even now admitted this and apologized to Friedman and said, yeah, well, you were right, but we won't do it again. So, it's changed quite a bit now that the truth is coming out, and it's going to be even more accessible to more people, because we're about to see another massive downturn. And those people who are still holding out hope that the government does have it figured out, the banks do have it figured out, will soon see that the government and the banks do not have it figured out. And that's when our time will come, when our solution will come back. And I say come back because this is not something new and untried. This has been the way things have been done throughout history. The state creates the money for the benefit of all people equally. It is the very essence of righteous self-government. And if you don't have that, it's the most basic building block of government in the public interest. And if we don't have that, we literally do not have self-governance, and we absolutely will be destined to return to serfdom, which in every country you can see coming up over the horizon very quickly now.
Okay, we've got an idea of your message. We've got an idea of the fact that more and more people are understanding that message over the years. You're in Ireland tonight, the 27th. Where are you speaking tonight, Thursday?
The Royal Hotel in Bray at 8 p.m. And then on Monday, Queen's University, the Peter Fogat Centre in Belfast at 7 p.m.
Okay, so that's tonight, Thursday, and then on Monday, and Monday is the 1st, it's the 1st of July. So it's tonight, Thursday, and it's also on Monday of next week. And yeah, definitely would encourage people. I thoroughly enjoyed Monday night. You were in Derry, a very vocal group of people. I'm sure you agree. That discussion could have continued, I think, through the night. And certainly from what people were saying in the room, particularly some of the people who were kind of leading the discussion, something there definitely taking root with regard to some of us maybe meeting up again in a few weeks. And that's very exciting. It's very exciting to see people, because it's not just enough to listen and to understand and agree with what your message is and what you're saying. It's important that for something like this and for some of the issues that we cover on the Irish Side of the Moon, that people are willing to get involved. And that seems to be happening, certainly from what I saw the other night, and I thought that was very exciting.
Yeah, that's right. People have got to get out and do something. Then nothing less than human freedom is on the line here, and it's very, very true that freedom is not free. You've got to get in there into the political system and be willing to run for office, and be willing to call a spade, and especially be willing not to take any of the loans or offers from the bankers or the financial system, and just keep yourself clean, and we can fix this really quite easily. The fix is very simple. The fix is not new. The fix has been done many times throughout history, and that's exactly what we need to do in Ireland.
Very good, very well said. Bill, a pleasure to speak to you again, a pleasure to meet you the other night. Hopefully we'll get you back. 4 years is too long. Hopefully we'll get you back for a proper full show in the near future, maybe go into detail on Jekyll Island. We'll direct people towards your website, your YouTube, etc., make people aware of that who aren't already. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be well aware of what your work is and what you're doing. I wish you continued success with that. I hope the rain doesn't completely wash you out of it here in Ireland for the next few days, and I hope the rest of your stay here is pleasurable and successful and safe journey home.
Thank you very much.
We are Irish Side of the Moon. Freedom of information, personal empowerment. The Irish Side of the Moon.
I still have a dream.
This is just a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love.
Freedom of information, personal empowerment. The Irish Side of the Moon.